Rivalries in NASCAR, we've seen plenty of them. You got friendly rivalries where two drivers are pretty good friends off the track, but on the track they experience a few run-ins. Or maybe they're just going back and forth trying to assert themselves as number one in the sport or within the organization. But then you got rivalries that are far from friendly. These guys have no respect for each other and would be willing to throw hands if they got to. We've seen rivalries develop in the top division, which is the Cup Series, but we also seen some rivals battle each other while they're both coming up through the NASCAR ranks. A rivalry I want to discuss in this video is a unique one, and it involves Ty Gibbs and Heim. A feud that feels pretty much alive to this day, even though nothing has happened between the two since 2021. During that time, these two drivers were neck and neck as the top prospects in NASCAR. Heim was driving for Winchester Motorsports, which is one of the more dominant teams in ARCA, and of course Ty Gibbs was driving for his grandfather Joe Gibbs. Nobody didn't have shit for these two in ARCA that year. They won 16 of the 20 races. Ty Gibbs winning 10 races and Heim winning 6. The driver that won the ultimate prize at year's end will be Ty Gibbs, while Heim had to settle for second. But these two had a couple of run-ins with each other throughout the season. Heading into Elko Speedway, which ignited this rivalry, it seemed like it wasn't anything too personal at first, just two racers trying to one-up each other. So yeah, it was already a rivalry, but nothing too extreme, until race 9 of the season. Ty Gibbs is in control of the race, but on lap 63, these two guys were battling for the lead. Heim was on the outside trying to clear for the lead, but Ty Gibbs bumps Heim going into turn 3. Nothing too egregious, but it did get Heim out of shape. Heim would give him the bumper in the next turn, but it wasn't enough and Ty Gibbs remained in control of the race. Gibbs pretty much dominated the race, but he had to deal with a late race restart, and of course it's Heim that's right on his ass taking the restart. They're going into turn 1 and Heim just aggressively moves Gibbs out of the way and went on to win the race. Ty Gibbs came home 4th. Now, was this payback for what Ty did earlier? That's pretty much how Heim viewed it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's all from the 18 as well, so I think that's pretty much even right there. He's probably mad because he lost like he usually is, but can't thank these Winchester guys enough. This Craftsman Camry was great tonight. Struggled a little bit in the middle portion of the race and kind of at the end there as well, but we were there when it counted. That's all that matters.
7th consecutive race, the pole sitter does not take it to victory lane. Take us through the move that got you that win.
Just paid back what he did to me early in the race. That's all it comes down to. So, like I said, thank you these Winchester guys enough. Can't thank these guys enough, and see you at Berlin.
Now, I'm going to be honest. Heim's move on Ty Gibbs was definitely egregious compared to what Ty did to him earlier in the race. He didn't dump him, but he went in there pretty much using Ty as a brake. So yeah, I get he wanted to get a little payback, but I think he went a little too far with it. On top of that, he talked some shit in his interview in Victory Lane towards Ty Gibbs. So after all of that, you knew payback was coming, and yeah, they interviewed Ty Gibbs, but he played it off like nothing happened, but he definitely stored that in the memory bank. So now it's kind of personal, but it seemed like Heim never liked Gibbs to begin with, just going off of what he said about him after he won Elko. It's nothing out there that's well documented before that race took place of them getting into it, so that remains unknown at the moment. If you were keeping up with the ARCA series around this time, you didn't have to wait much longer for things to start back up between these two. Race 12, the ARCA series headed to Winchester Speedway. The dominant car of the day was Heim, but Ty Gibbs, even with a little bit of damage that came from, funny enough, making contact with someone earlier in the race, was right behind Heim, just pretty much stalking him. Heim is getting caught up in lap traffic and Gibbs is beating his back bumper off, and then eventually goes into turn 1 a little deeper and dumps the 20. Heim didn't have much damage, but his chances of winning were pretty much done. Surprisingly, both of their post-race interviews were sorta calm. Ty Gibbs just said it was a racing incident and Heim was looking ahead to next week. It was one of those interviews where you know the driver is seeing red, but they're trying to remain professional, kind of like Chase Elliott's interview from 2022 Watkins Glen after Kyle Larson used them up on the last restart. It was no fight or one taking a shot at the other in their interviews. They moved on to Watkins Glen and started on the front row, side by side. And you think it's going to be fireworks after what just happened the previous race, but they actually raced around each other in a mostly respectful manner. A little door banging, but nothing else happened. Heim goes on to win the race. This rivalry, at least on track, remained quiet for the rest of the season. Ty Gibbs is crowned champion, and while all of this was going on, Ty wasn't just dominating in ARCA, but he became a star very early in 2021 when he won at the Daytona Road Course in his first Xfinity start. He would go on to win 3 more races that year in a part-time schedule, and without even thinking about it, he would run full-time the next year in the Xfinity Series and proceeded to win the championship after making many enemies throughout the season. Ty Gibbs' journey to the Cup Series wasn't fast forward. While dominating Xfinity, he was thrown into the Cup Series not just for one start, not a few starts, but a grand total of 15 starts. Notice that I said thrown into the Cup Series. Unfortunately, Kurt Busch suffered a concussion after a wreck in qualifying at Pocono, and Ty Gibbs was the one that was tapped to drive the car. Fast forward a year later and he's driving for his grandfather full-time in the Cup Series, already in his 3rd year. What was happening with Corey Heim throughout all of this? Well, he dabbled between ARCA and trucks in 2022, won 2 races for KBM in their final season as an organization, and found himself over at Tricon Garage and trucks full-time. And he remained there for another year. And then another year. At this point, this is how Corey Heim's NASCAR career is going. He's stuck in a series that he has no business being in at this point. He's proven that he should be in a competitive car on Sundays. Why has he not moved up when he's been kicking ass in the truck series the past 3 years? Before I state the obvious, people have pointed out that sponsorship is the reason why, and yes, it's true. That's part of it at least. Safelite is primarily a Toyota sponsor. As a matter of fact, he's used other Toyota sponsorships throughout his career so far to get the opportunities he's gotten, but he doesn't bring his own funding. And in this day and age, that's ultra important to have. You could be garbage as hell behind the wheel, but if you bring funding, you'll get a seat. With Heim, he's dominating, but it's not really making a difference. You would think Toyota would want him to move up to the Xfinity Series and be in the JGR car right away, but that hasn't been the case. This is where it becomes very strange. Corey Heim has never sat in a Joe Gibbs Xfinity car. A top prospect, not getting the opportunity to drive some of the best cars in the series. He's driven for Sam Hunt Racing, which is a team that gets second tier equipment from Toyota, but he can't find himself in a JGR car, and that's odd because look how many drivers that doesn't really bring funding get opportunities to drive those cars anyway. Brett Moffitt and Ryan Truex being the first 2 that comes to mind. They didn't drive full time for Gibbs, but at least gotten opportunities. You telling me that you couldn't get the top prospect in NASCAR into a Gibbs car for at least 1 race? I'm not buying that. Toyota and Joe Gibbs partners can definitely get on board and sponsor Heim for a few races at least. Joe Gibbs has shown before that he could be a petty owner. I think back to him denying Kyle Busch to run in the Indianapolis 500. Toyota gave him the yes, he had the sponsorship to do it, but it was Joe that gave him the hard no and prevented the whole thing from happening. He also played a role in Furniture Row shutting down because he raised the cost of their alliance. And in this case, he's denying a talented driver from running in one of his cars because of the beef Heim had with Joe's grandson, Ty Gibbs. This is not a Toyota decision. If that was the case, he wouldn't be driving a Toyota Tundra right now or be able to drive Sam Hunt Toyota Supras. He also wouldn't be driving Toyotas for 2311 Racing, which he does part-time currently. This is a Joe Gibbs decision in my opinion. And going back to Heim's lack of sponsorship, I think that made the decision even easier for Joe Gibbs to keep Heim out of his cars. So here's Corey Heim in the year 2025 smoking his competition on a weekly basis in the truck series, breaking records left and right, and he's possibly going to remain in that series for another year. He signed with 2311 Racing as a developmental driver, and yeah, he makes a few cup starts with them, but it's not full time. A lot of people wanted him to be in the 35, but somebody with money took the ride and runs 25th to 30th every week. So what does Corey Heim do? Because I don't see Riley Herbst going anywhere in 2026, especially with the 2311 lawsuit going on. If Corey Heim is going to spend another season in the trucks, it just makes this whole situation even more frustrating. The rivalry Corey Heim has with Ty Gibbs is why he's in this position for the most part, and he's not to blame for it. This move shouldn't be the reason why he's not allowed in a Joe Gibbs car. But when you feud with a Nepo baby in racing, I guess this is what happens. I don't know if this is really the reason why he's not allowed to race for Joe Gibbs. It can't be. It has to be more to this, because if this is the sole reason why JGR doesn't want him in his cars, then holy shit, it kind of makes me lose respect for Joe Gibbs. If Ty Gibbs was the one that went up to Joe and told him, hey grandpa, can you please not put Corey Heim in one of your cars? And Joe just went ahead and granted that for his grandson and threw business out of the window, And oh my goodness, that is the most petty thing I've seen in the sport, to be honest. Yes, Corey Heim doesn't bring sponsorship, but like I said, there's no way that Joe couldn't work with sponsors and his personal sponsors to get him in one of his cars at least for a few races. There's no way, because I bet Joe didn't even try. And think about this, if this feud never became a thing, I think Corey Heim most likely would have been tapped to take over for Martin Truex Jr. instead of Chase Briscoe. He doesn't bring sponsorship just like Corey Heim, but Bass Pro Shop is a strong partner with JGR and honestly plenty of NASCAR teams, but they went ahead and stepped up and ended up sponsoring the 19 car for an entire season. That possibly could have been Corey Heim in that position. No, I'm not a Corey Heim fan or a Ty Gibbs hater. I'm neutral when it comes to both of these drivers. I just hate seeing talented drivers that should be racing on Sundays not be able to. I feel for Corey Heim. So where does he go from here? I'm not sure. Does he stick it out with 2311 Racing, who is in a lawsuit and can end up on the losing end after the dust settles? It's a risk. Maybe if Legacy ends up getting a third charter, he'll head over there. Yeah, they're not good, but they have been getting better lately. But what could have been for Corey Heim if not for his rivalry with Ty Gibbs? I don't believe this is a myth. I think some people would say it is, and it's just strictly lack of sponsorship of why he's in this situation. But when you put it all together, I just find that hard to believe that's the sole reason. I think this rivalry has put Heim's progression on hold until something actually comes together for him that can have him compete on Sundays. And I truly believe Corey Heim will be racing on Sundays in the future. We just don't know when exactly that will be. And I can't wait, not only because he's very talented and deserves to be there just going off of what he's done so far, but to be racing Ty Gibbs on a weekly basis again for the first time since 2021. Will we see the next chapter in their rivalry take place, and could it escalate even further? I don't think these guys are going to be battling mid-pack either. I believe they'll be battling towards the front, just like in their ARCA days. I gave y'all my opinion on this, and now I want to know what y'all thoughts are on the Ty Gibbs versus Corey Heim rivalry. Let me know in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and roll up out of here. Y'all have a good one. Peace.